Hey, hey, welcome to another recording of Invincible You. Whatever time of the day you're listening to this, welcome. We have some guests in the room. We have two guests today. We have the lovely Mickey and Emma. Welcome, guys.
Welcome. How are you doing? You all
Hi
right?
guys.
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We're going to look at relationships, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely.
All about love.
Oh, I love that word. We don't use that word enough, do we?
Do you know what? I think it gets used so many times in ways that actually kind of pulls the word down. What do you
Yeah.
think? Yeah.
Do you
I
think
love
sometimes
this dude.
it's
I love this thing.
overused?
I think it can be overused in the wrong context. You know what I love in Spanish? We're living in Spain at the moment, and they have te quiero, which is how you tell your friend that you love them. And then you have te amo, which is how you would tell your partner that you love them. And I just love that they have different ways of saying I love you for something that's a little bit more special for a significant other. I really like that.
Oh, there's so much conversation there around the word love. Just so as people get an idea of who you both are and what brings you to this recording today, give people a brief kind of insight as to where your journey has been and where it's led you to this point today.
Awesome. Would you like me to go first, or you?
No, I'll go first. So hi everyone, I'm Emma. My journey in relationships has been a pretty turbulent one, to be honest. I had a pretty challenging upbringing in the sense that I left home at 15 years old. And then I ended up getting married to somebody that was older than me, older than my father, sorry. So it was a pretty turbulent, unhealthy marriage for like 9 years. And I ended up then moving to America as well after that time. And I got married again, and I was married then for another 12 years. Both of them were really unhealthy relationships. And I was in a lot of denial for a very long time, for many, many years, probably throughout about halfway through both of those marriages, I knew the relationship was not right for me, but I still stayed anyway. And relationships have been so important to me that it's been a blessing and a curse. To have a union with someone is so important, but at the same time, I stayed way longer than I should. And in this relationship that I have now with Mickey, I promised that this time would be different. And so I've done so much inner work myself, done so much on understanding all the theory behind everything of why we do what we do, just so that I, for my personal self, don't keep running these patterns, but then now so that I can help other people. And I feel like I can really relate to a lot of people, because so many people say, oh, just do this, just leave, just, make it sound so easy. And I know with my heart and soul that it's not easy when you're in it. It's really, really not. So that's really what's brought me to this. I mean, I'm a nurse by trade. That's kind of what I did for a living. So always, caring, healing, something of that nature. I just love being around people. And then to lead into Mickey, we actually were together when we were 10. So we were together for a year back then.
Oh.
Yeah.
Childhood sweethearts.
Yeah, so we were pretty intense back then, even though it were only a year that we were together. But for a 10-year-old, being with someone for a year, I guess is pretty intense. But then 25 years later, we met again, even though we lived in separate countries, came home to the UK, and it was just fireworks, and it's been like that ever since. And we've really been shown that this is our path. We have such a healthy relationship ourselves that we want to just, I want everyone to experience this. I want everyone, it's available to everybody, and I want everyone to have it. So that's what's brought me to this journey.
What a fascinating story. I'd love to go further into that. Maybe on another recording, but there's so much there that as a therapist, I want to immediately start picking stuff out, but I won't.
Don't therapize me.
I won't, I promise
you. So for myself, I've been on the personal development journey for probably about 15 years now, pretty much, and I first read my first self-help book. It was about 15 years ago. And this has just fascinated me a lot. This whole human psychology and emotional intelligence and why we are the way we are has fascinated me a lot. And what I realized as I was doing a bit of a timeline of my life was that my relationships have pretty much been the biggest catalyst for my growth. It's always done this, like in a relationship, steady growth. And then the breakup has also catalyzed a big growth spurt. And it just made me really start to look at relationships even more now. Since I was probably 16, 17, I've pretty much always had a girlfriend. Everyone after another, you know, I might be in a 3-year relationship, single for a couple of weeks, and then in another 3-year relationship. And this was always a thing. I just really loved being around, you know, the opposite sex, I guess, or being in a love relationship, or there's something in there. Now I know more why that is, right? Like I've learned more about that. And so this always fascinated me. My life has revolved around relationships quite a lot. So with that and the personal development, and then recognizing that my relationships were always this catalyst for growth, it really kind of all came together when Emma and I were getting questions, people speaking to us, asking questions about our relationship and what the secret was and things like that. And I was already kind of helping people with spiritual concepts and, you know, helping people through psycho-spiritual awakenings a little bit and talking about transpersonal things. And we was looking for a niche, something that we could use as, you know, so that we could really direct who we were working with. And at the moment that we started to think, what niche shall we choose? Relationships came up really strongly, really obvious, really clear. And we'd both been so important for both of us, and we both got a really strong yes in the nervous system. You know that feeling, right? When you decide something, the whole nervous system says yes. Finally got it. And so we basically upped and left the UK and moved to Spain and just put all our eggs in this basket. And we said, okay, let's do this. This is what we're teaching now. This is what we're doing. We already had a lot of tools. I came from a hypnotherapy background and done some coaching and lots of inner work myself. So kind of leading the way in that respect. And it was strange, you know, the moment we made that decision, we was trying to reverse engineer what had happened for us in a way that it was teachable. It opened up this whole world of what they call integral relationships and conscious relationships. And we ended up finding lots and lots of resources and models and tools that we could use to teach other people. And so the whole thing's just kind of become a calling, a shared purpose, and something for us to co-create and share with the world.
What really fascinates me there is, you know, when we talk about relationships, when I think about the kind of the baseline of relationships, when we are born, one of the very first things we do is create a relationship with our primary carer, don't we?
Yes.
And if that relationship with our primary carer isn't, let's say, a healthy one, then that is a learned pattern that we can then repeat for the rest of our lives. Some of my favorite work in here is relationship work. I don't know what, I think, I was going to say I don't know why. I do know why. It's something to do with the dynamics and working out the dynamics between two people, and also looking at their past, looking at their history, and then looking at how then that brings them together. But also, there's a really common thing that I found in here, and it's that what brings people together quite often ends up being a conflict in 4, 5, or 6 years time down the line. And it's something to do with, I don't know, I'm really attracted to powerful women, and I really like a powerful woman. So therefore you're going to be my partner. And then 4 years down the line, all of a sudden this man is threatened by this powerful woman. And it's spent 4 years kind of going like this and suppressing and suppressing and suppressing. And then she steps forward and goes, what have I done? So it's really interesting. You do see this pattern of where people are attracted to something, but then the attraction becomes the conflict almost. But they're just fascinating, aren't they? So I've got loads of questions in front of me. When you're working with people with relationships, what would you say was the number one subject visited?
Right. Do you know what I'd say right now? It's different. Like, because I think we go through seasons of having new, and I think right now the thing that everybody's talking about is narcissism. It's a new word that's entered everybody's lexicon, and everyone's talking about this thing. And I mean, it's huge, but it's a double-edged sword, because it's helping a lot of people who've suffered at the hands of somebody with this disorder. It helped them see that clearly and go, oh, it's not me, and start to rebuild themselves, right?
Yeah.
So that's really, really useful, a really positive experience. But at the same time, what we're also seeing is these Facebook groups that are full of disgruntled, quite freshly single people who are all pointing the finger, calling their, saying my ex was a narcissist. And it's this big frenzy of people all kind of thriving and loving this energy and all bouncing off each other and saying, what did your narc do? What would you say to them now? And I really feel this kind of, that it's disempowering a lot of people, because they're using this now as something they can latch onto to not take full responsibility for their part in it as well. And I know that can be really hard for some people to hear, but if we really, really want to liberate people and help set them free from these destructive patterns and help them build self-esteem, something that we've spoken about, right, just dead recently, and something that can ultimately help them receive this union, this beautiful union, with an upward spiral of care, nurturing, and love. Like, we need to be honest with people, and we need to say it's time to take responsibility for your part in this thing. You're attracting this person to point out your weaknesses so that you can then step and evolve. And like I said before, it's the catalyst for evolution. It's the catalyst to grow.
As you were talking then, I wrote down the word blame, because I was like, So I was previous to my current marriage, I was in a relationship that wasn't pure narcissism. There was a lot of kind of, do you know the term histrionic? Do you understand histrionic? Yeah,
I think I used to have that actually when I look back.
Yeah, histrionic's very close to narcissism, but it's far more charming, and maybe a little bit sexualized as well. But that just leads on from being charming sometimes. And I can look back and say, my ex-partner was histrionic and yada, yada, yada. But I have to own that and go, I allowed that to happen. And I allowed it to happen because of my self-esteem and because of my self-worth. And unless I do that, like you just said, then I can't grow, and I'll just carry on with the pattern. So you're quite right. It is hard to hear. And there shouldn't be Facebook groups of people going, yeah, it's terrible, and oh, woe is me. No. We don't do that. Because we want to grow from it, don't we?
And they're all reinforcing each other's stories to keep them all stuck in this energy.
Absolutely.
And have you ever heard the saying, when you point the finger, there's three pointing back at you? It's so true, right? We've until we really own where we're at. Now, just while we're on this subject, I do want to point out that what Emma said before, when you're in it, you're in it. And we don't want to belittle anybody's circumstances. When you're in it and you're submersed and immersed in that thing, it's difficult to know that you're in it. And it's easy for us now to say in hindsight, oh yeah, I need to take responsibility. But hopefully, if somebody hears this and they are in that mire, if you like, and they're stuck in it, that maybe it might just plant a little bit of a seed of recognition of, what, I do have a little bit of autonomy here and a little bit of power, and I am still choosing this every minute of every day. On some level, I'm still choosing this. I'm not ready to let go yet, or perhaps I am ready to let go now.
Maybe it speaks to as well, just thinking about, where you do put your energy around it. So if it is in these Facebook groups, is it serving you? Is it helping you when you're in there? Are you moving forward from it? Or is this still a pattern that keeps playing out? So perhaps maybe where you're placing your energy and who you're listening to is not helpful for you. So maybe just reconsider that, who you're taking your advice from. We always say, don't we, you don't take financial advice from someone that's homeless, because they're clearly, it's not working out well for them. So, I think it's important to think about who you're listening to, and are they perhaps living the life that you desire, in that area.
There's two words that came up then as you were talking, Emma, and it was empowerment and nourishment. And I thank you for pointing that out, because I think it's really important that people understand that we can be stuck in a Facebook group, but is it empowering you? Is it nourishing you in some way? So nourishment is about growth. Are you getting some growth from that? And if you're not, then I think being in a space like that and like that kind of Facebook group can, I don't know, almost normalize it and make us feel better and go, oh, I'm not on my own. It's not about me. It's about them. And I think in the beginning, maybe that's okay. But then I want people to ask themselves, are you growing? and are you being nourished from this group of people? And if you're not, then maybe it's time to move on. So maybe it does hit a mark in the beginning, but not moving forward.
That's it, because we see it as almost a competition, who was abused the worst.
Yeah.
And you can see people, a lot of one-upmanship going on
Yeah.
in that space. And so, yeah, like you said, I think there's safety in numbers and finding your tribe, and that recognition of normalization to some extent. But we've got to recognize that ultimately it is transitory, and it's not the answer. It's a transitory period.
Yeah. One of the hardest things I do in therapy is when people say, and he did this to me, or he, and I go, can I just say you allowed that to happen? And I have to be really careful when I say that, really, and I have to be careful who I'm saying it to. And there are some people I can say it to, and there are some people I can't, because they're not ready to hear that, and I know they're not. But sometimes they'll say it and they'll go, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, it's like a dynamic. It goes back and forward. It's an energy that goes back and forward. And on some level, you allowed that to happen to you. It's not just about what they did. And I don't want to dismiss what they did, but you still allowed that to happen. And whether this is any form of abuse or words or any kind of behavior, doesn't matter what it is, there is an allowance there. Like you said, Mickey, choices.
Something that I really stand by as well, that I recognize to be true, certainly in my own life, and a lot of people in my community and people I've spoken to about this, is you will only take as much grief off somebody else, give yourself. The moment, the amount of abuse or whatever that they're hurling at you, it goes beyond that which you give yourself, you will say no more, and you will leave. So the kinder we are to ourselves, and the more compassionate we are towards ourselves, and the nicer our inner dialogue is, and then the less we will take externally. And we know this, right? In to out. It's always in to out.
But that's a nice thing to note, that because obviously you can't control your partner, your mate, but you can do something about it for yourself. So again, that empowerment, that nourishment. So it's like, I know for my own self, when I was so far down in it, and I felt like they had so much power, and and a lot of times I was really afraid and felt like I had no control. But now I realize how much control I do have over my thoughts and emotions and beliefs, and nurturing my own self-worth. And so when I finally put the attention there, then that's when things started to shift for me and to change.
I wonder as well, just picking up on that, whether there's some level of, in our earlier relationships, we make choices. Because when I look back at my first two partners, the first one was, really hoping he doesn't listen to this, because I've never said this to him. There was some level of, he was always front and center. But maybe I felt safe there. Do you know what I mean? And for you, maybe, Emma, maybe you felt safe marrying a man so much older, because he would have allowed you to feel safe. So again, it kind of hits a mark, but it doesn't mean to say that it's healthy for us as people. So there's that to consider as well. It might be hitting a mark, but it doesn't mean to say that it's long-term or it's going to last forever.
Yeah.
And it's mirrors as well, isn't it? It's reflections.
I mean, I now understand, like what you were saying about from childhood, that these things really do come from childhood. I know so much, especially in our culture, it's like, oh, get over it, move on, move past. It's like these things hit hard, they're deep-seated. Where we want that human connection, and if we don't get it in the way, and it's not like necessarily our parents didn't give us everything that they could, perhaps they did to their level, but some of us are more sensitive than others. And I think looking back, I was a really sensitive child that needed a lot more love than I felt like I received, and so I seeked it in unhealthy ways. Then when I felt like I didn't get it, my dad did love me, but he showed me love by going out to work really hard and long hours, and that was his showing of love. But for me, I think I needed more cuddles, and I needed more of that connection from that way. So I think it is nice to know as well, it's empowering again, that we can go back into all that and we can heal all that. Like it can be done, it's
absolutely, it can definitely be reprogrammed. Just a little caveat here on parenting, and I say this in therapy all the time, this is not about bashing parenting. Parenting has to be one of the hardest jobs that we have to do. It's so difficult. As a parent, I can say that, and I always remember, oh, do I want to say this or not? No, I better not say that. just in case. Just in case. I always remember my daughter stepping forward at 18 and saying something to me and my ex-wife, and delivering something, and I heard it, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, how did you let that happen? How did that happen? And how did we not know about it until now? Because it had happened years previous."
Yeah.
And we thought we'd got it right. Do you know what I mean? It's such a hard position in life to get just right, to get all of those elements right.
We are going to traumatize the children. They're really, 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 really sensitive. I mean, until the age of around 5 to 7, where we don't have the critical thinking, the filter, right? So we're literally in hypnosis as children for years, for several years. Of course, there's a lot of suggestions get planted in there. Of course, that's going to stay there and run the show until it's done. And this is where relationships are so important, right? So we're born, we're almost like a blank canvas. I know people have their own take on that, but let's just say for the sake of this conversation, we're a blank canvas when we're born. And then we collect deficiencies, don't we? We collect our deficiencies as we grow up. Oh, I don't get loved when I do this. I don't get loved when I do that. I don't feel taken care of. I don't feel safe. And boom, boom, this bit about me is not enough. I'm not good enough here. I'm not good enough there. Wound, wound, wound.
Yeah.
Program. We collect them. And then the beauty in relationships is for the rest of our lives, everybody we come into contact with is showing us exactly where those wounds are, so that we can go in and do the healing and become whole again. And this seems to be the human journey, right? Yeah. Pick up the deficiencies, then use everybody as a mirror to point out where those deficiencies are, go in and resolve them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's such a fascinating subject, isn't it? I feel like we could sit here and talk for hours.
Yes.
Next question. Where and why do you feel relationships go wrong? What's missing?
Right. Do you want to go first or do you want me to?
Go.
No. The main thing is self-awareness, right? Not having self-awareness. This is huge.
Yeah.
I think the sooner we realize that our experience of life is going through the filter of us, it's not objective. Like pretty much everything we see is going through the filter of what does this mean to me? And there's so much subjectivity. And until we get in there and learn about ourselves, we're just looking at this big reflection of all our inadequacies, insecurities, deficiencies, and everything's a projection, right? Everything's to try and steer clear of like technical language. If we feel weak, everyone else looks like a bully. For example, if we feel small, everyone else looks big. The world looks like a big bad place, and this is why people end up being say doormats in relationships. They're literally teaching people to treat them that way through body language, tonality, eye contact, the words that they use, the actions that they take, and there's so much going on. Micro expressions. And humans are so adept at picking up on this stuff, whether we know it or not. Unconsciously, we're picking this up. And in the world of hypnotherapy, there's a saying, we cannot not communicate. We cannot not communicate. We're always doing it. And everybody's picking it up. Everybody's picking it up. That's why someone says, I always get treated like this. I never, these big sweeping statements. It's always this. It's never this. Because we're teaching life to treat us that way. We're interpreting everything that way, even if that's not what's happening. And then we're creating this feedback loop, right? And at the moment we really dive into self-awareness, we start to go, this is not true. This is my thing. Right. So all these relationships, it was me doing that. It wasn't them. Boom, straight back to empowerment, straight back to this is my responsibility. Of course, everybody walked all over me because I was telling them to, because I have this deep-seated belief that I'm a doormat and I'm subservient and submissive, and I make people treat me that way by acting that way. So what goes wrong in relationships generally is that a massive lack of self-awareness and just running the pattern over and over and over again.
I probably would add like the not living in alignment, again, bring it back into my own relationship. I knew for so long that it was not right for me, but I still stayed in there anyway. And I think it's not living in alignment and trying to make something work that with your heart and soul isn't meant for you for whatever reason. But yet you're still trying to do it and you're still trying to communicate. And I very much have seen through the work how people are on very different paths a lot of times in relationships, and they're just not you know, I think maybe people can resonate a lot with this, or realize this maybe with the lockdown, you know, like being with someone probably way more than you ever did, because normally you're off doing your own thing and you're quite busy, and then when you're actually together for a long periods of time, it's like, well, I don't think we actually like each other, you know. There could be a lot that comes up with that, but yet you just trudge through, like, you know, and keep the status quo, and it's all right, it's not bad, you know, it's not that bad. And it's like, I'd very much feel like as well, like, say for example, if you find out something, just to keep it simple, like say if you find out you're anxiously attached or something like that, you find out something about yourself, I feel like it should almost be treated like a cancer that's inside. If you had cancer inside, you won't just leave it, you know, you haven't got years, you better get after it, and you better do it, and like you'd find the best doctors, you get the best treatment, you do your best. But for a lot of people, I think, like for myself even, get these kinds of labels, and then you just kind of like, well, that's, you know, that's how I am, I'm a little bit anxious attached, and it's, you know, because of this and that happened to me. And but it's like, get aggressive about it, there's so much you can do about these things, you know. You know, cancer, you can't sit with it for 6, 7, 8, 9 years, you know, it's not happening. So I like to think of it together, as in, get that motivation, get that drive, because life's not slowing down.
It's like, have a sense of urgency, but also have patience. Have a sense of urgency with the action that you take, and have patience with the results.
With the process and the journey. One of the most common things I hear in therapy is, it's just the way I am. It's just, and they go, no. It's the way that you were programmed. That's your programming. However, like the circuitry in a house in terms of electricity can be changed. So can you. The programming can be changed. So going back to Mickey, you mentioned then the filter. Just to clarify again, that filter that we see life through is largely created from our childhood. It just is, but the filter can be changed. We can change that. And I think for a lot of people, what's going off for me when I hear people say, well, you know, it's just the way I am. I think sometimes they know that they can change it. And sometimes they go, I'm not ready. It feels too big. That does. I just can't touch that right now. Just feels too big. And then other times when you say that, they go, no, it's just who I am. I'm like, no, it's not. You can change it.
There's a name for this actually, or there's something that describes this, and it's whether you are open, arrested, or closed. Right. So if your mind is open, and then you're able to flex and move and adapt and evolve. If it's arrested, it means you either don't believe that change is possible, or you don't believe it's possible for you, or you think it's possible but not yet. So that's kind of the arrested state. And then it's closed, which is there is absolutely no option. Now, if someone's closed, they're not going to change. Simple as that. Until something allows them to open their mind, at least somewhat, to let a chink in the armor, if you like, to let a bit of light come in and see that light. Then they can pull themselves up to the next level. But what we're talking about, you know, with the changing the filter, there's a nuance in this that's vital, really, for a lot of people to understand, and that's we can reframe and change the filter at the stage and level of consciousness and development that we're at. Or we can throw that out and evolve to the next stage of consciousness. We go through stages of awakening in life, cognitive development and spiritual development. We go through different stages of how much we identify with our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, and eventually we go, oh, they're just a thing that I've picked up. That this is a process of awakening, right? So if we're still in our beliefs, we can use hypnotherapy and things like that to change the beliefs. But we can also step back and watch the beliefs play out and go, that's not me. So there's different ways of approaching it. What are we doing? Using the tools that we have to change the current reality, or evolving beyond and transcending those old patterns and beliefs. It's a different process for each one.
I really hope that what people are taking from this is that change is ours, and it is accessible to everybody in slightly different ways, slightly different levels, but it is accessible. So step into it, be brave, be vulnerable. And that's another reason why we don't step into it, is because we have to be brave and vulnerable as we step in.
Absolutely. Do you know what I would say for anybody that really wants to understand this and to be able to make a change is look back at every time your life got better. You changed something. You let go of an old pattern. You let go of a belief. Every time something changed, every time you evolved in some way, that's what you did. You opened your mind and you let something new in, or something blindsided you and it showed you that there is definitely something out there that you'd not considered.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's develop that muscle, that opening of the mind, and we'll keep finding our way back to peace. And then we'll go through it again and we'll find our way back to what we call the new alpha fit, the new stage of peace. And then we'll go through it again. But each time we don't land back in the same place. We land somewhere a little bit more aligned, a little bit more healthy.
Yeah. I'd go back to the question. I loved your answer. Interestingly, it wasn't the answer that was in my head. In my head, I'd got communication because when I work with couples, it's always like it's effective communication. It just isn't there a lot of the time. But then when I looked at your answer, I was like, yeah, but self-awareness leads into effective communication, because if we don't know who we are, then we can't communicate effectively. If we talk about the love languages, which we're not going to go into in this recording, maybe we'll pick it up on another recording, then if I talk to people about the love languages and I go, what is your love language? Sometimes they go, I have no idea. What do you mean? I'm like, and then we have to teach them. But so there's a little bit of learning and self-awareness right there. So they're expecting to be loved by somebody, but they don't know how they receive love from that person. It's such a classic, that is.
Absolutely. And to build on that as well, with self-awareness, because
Yeah.
we're going in and learning about ourselves, it changes the way we interact with others anyway, because we're curious about them in different ways. We're not just having run-of-the-mill, chit-chat. We get to the point where when we're going deep in our self-awareness, we want to know what's making other people tick. And that creates the intimacy dynamic of a relationship.
Yeah.
You can only be as intimate with somebody else as you can be with yourself. And by intimacy, I like to use the term into me you see. And it's just a way of remembering it, intimacy, into me you see. And if we're not looking into ourselves, we're not looking into anyone else with any more depth either. And so we automatically and organically create more intimacy by working within ourselves. And like you just perfectly said, we communicate from that place. We communicate better. We don't need to manage and have techniques to communicate, like nonviolent communication, for example. There's a place for it, but ultimately when we know ourselves well and we know what our real objectives are and how we want to be of service, and we're coming from a pure place, we don't need techniques to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Emma, to pick you up on something you said, you were talking about what's happened over the past year, and I remember saying in March last year when the UK first went into lockdown, this is now survival of the fittest. And I was talking about businesses, I was talking about people, I was talking about relationships, I was talking about everything, because only the strongest businesses would survive this, only the strongest relationships would survive this. And for a lot of people, and I've seen loads and loads of different relationships break up, it feels like for some people, they had a model. This is how our model works. And I don't know, let's say a classic would be that the guy goes off, works 5 days a week, but he's away from the house, and the other partner's just getting on with their lives, and it's all good. And then all of a sudden the partner lands back in the house, is in the house and working from home. And all of a sudden you go, whoa, what happened here? This is not how we do this. And that's when they really struggle. But it's almost like the last year has brought out this new reality of, and changed everybody's model. How do we run business? How do we run ourselves? I've seen more and more people really struggle over the last year in terms of, I'm just managing. And then all of a sudden this pressure comes from what's happening in the world around us. And then people go, I can't do this. So it's shifted everything, hasn't it? And it really, really tested a lot of people.
It really has. I mean, in a lot of ways, COVID is obviously, it's been awful and so many people have lost so many loved ones, but it's also been a gift in a lot of ways, because so many of us were just trudging through, and it's given us all the opportunity to stop and re-look at things and decide, is this working for us as a family, for me as an individual? So there is a lot of beauty in that as well, I think. Obviously a lot of sadness too, but a lot of beauty. For
me, there was a real opportunity for myself and other people and businesses and all sorts of different dynamics to thrive. I kept saying to people in March last year, come on, let's thrive through this and not just survive, because I could see a lot of people going into this place of just got to survive, just got to survive. And I was like, you're going to be surviving for a long time. And I really kept encouraging people to thrive. Come on, let's grow. Let's do this together, because we can. And whilst all of this stuff is taking place around us, we can still grow through that.
Absolutely. There's a pattern interrupt happened, you know, in the world of hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
I know I refer to that, but there's a pattern interrupt, right? And in NLP. So if anyone who doesn't know what that is, often what we'll do is somebody will ask a question that triggers an automatic response, or they'll behave in a way that triggers an automatic response. The therapist might do that. And then as you start going into your automatic reaction, your response to that you always run your pattern, they will maybe clap their hands really loud and they'll shout something, and it like interrupts that pattern. Yeah. And then the thing that you say straight, or that they say straight after that, sinks deeply. You're listening, because this pattern's been interrupted, and the body then goes, oh, I don't know what to do now, because I'm I was going to do that thing and now I've been interrupted. I don't know where to go. And then we can do something new and choose again from that point. And that's what this whole pandemic's done to the world. It's put a massive pattern interrupt. Everyone's like, okay, now what? And it's like, say, we can use that to either replace it with something unhealthy or replace it with something healthy.
Yeah. Well, we can either go in survival mode, or we can grow through it. And I wanted people to grow through it. Another question for you.
Yes.
What for you two makes relationships work?
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
I mean, definitely living in alignment is massive. For me, I had such low self-esteem and low self-worth. So realizing that Mickey can't give me these things, because I think when you're looking externally for someone to fill this void that's inside, that is a disaster. It has been a disaster for me. So me realizing my own worth, my own value, but from me, not someone telling me, or not someone trying to give it to me. I think that's been absolutely massive for me, because it takes the pressure off when you, especially because I have had the anxious attachment. You're always wanting someone to placate all your feelings and make you feel comfortable and say all the right things. And that's really, really draining to a partner to have to maintain that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think doing all the inner work myself has really helped our relationship, and we often come together and make sure that we're still in alignment. Are we still, you growing? Am I growing? Do you like the path that we're on? Is it working for us? Is it serving others? We always look at it, don't we, to see if our vision is congruent.
Like an airplane, like they say it's off course 90% of the time, but it just keeps correcting along the way. So we're constantly just making sure that things are still in alignment. We're still heading in the right direction, checking in.
And I'm aware of like owning your own responsibility and things. So there's certain parts to it. Like, so I know what's mine and I know what's Mickey's. And so we don't blur those lines. And we have a lot of love and compassion for when things come up, but we don't shy away from them. We tackle them together as a couple, and we say all the time that we're on the same team. So if we have a moment where both of us are triggered, we look at each other and we say we're on the same team. So let's look at this together. We're not against each other.
So instead of me and you having a conflict, it's like something's coming up to be seen in both of us right now. Let's side by side look at what it is that's coming up. What are the wounds that we're both dealing with, and let's together work on resolving these, and sit with them and feel our way through them, talk about them, and open it up to be healed and resolved permanently. And I can't say enough about that, being on the same team. How many couples are not on the same team?
I see it all the time. What you were just demonstrating there, Emma, was again communication. That level of communication in terms of, are we still going in the right direction? Are we on the same path? And that check-in. Sometimes I'll work with a couple and I'll say, what are your plans? What do you see in the future? Where are you going? And they go, don't know. Where are we going? And then literally they've not even thought about it. They don't bumble through life. Feels like it's an insult, but it almost feels like they just bumble through life, and they have a job, and then they get another job, and then they have children, and then they get married, and then they get another job, and they just bumble and bumble and bumble. And I'm like, where are your plans? What are your plans? What are your paths? And to grow individually, but then bring it back together and talk about those growth it's just so powerful to do that. So what an amazing piece of communication you've got together.
And do you know what? Something that you just said there as well, what a lot of what we teach and work with, we talk about awakening in relationships.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's had some stages and awakenings in their life, what we mean by that is, you know, the thing that you never questioned, you were always just asleep to it, and it was just something that you did automatically. Like you said before, I'm just like that. And it's when we question something and go, oh, actually, I've never ever questioned this thing. This can be completely different. And we talk about the awakening in relationships. People taking for granted that this is what relationships are. Yeah. This is what my grandparents did. This is what my parents did. And they just never, ever get in there and relook at it and decide, is this what I want a relationship to be? Because, I mean, I actually wrote a few things down here. I wrote 6 points that I thought would be really nice to share with your listeners and keep it kind of succinct and useful. And this is the first one. When you said what makes a relationship work, I've kind of, I'd like to maybe reframe that a tiny bit to what makes a relationship healthy, because we can have ones that work, but let's have one that's thriving, really, really healthy. Mm-hmm. And I would say step one is throw out everything you've ever learned about relationships and start again. All that stuff that you learned from the generations before you, they weren't you. They didn't have the same structures that you have. So you can completely reimagine it. You don't have to do what everyone else is doing. That's not a given. It's up to you. Yeah. And I bet there's a lot of partners and people, single people out there that would love to get in a relationship with someone and say, what shall we do with this? We can do anything with this. What is the purpose of this relationship? Where should we take it? Like, get excited about it. You're going to spend a lot of time with that person, right? Especially if you live together. Massive impact in your life, a massive, someone there all the time, like holding this mirror up and let's get excited about it and make it worthwhile and make it something special. So then the next thing I wanted to share was about being mentally and emotionally healthy, right? There's one significant thing that makes a relationship work, even if you're incompatible, and that is two people that are healthy. Yeah. If both people are healthy, there's no blame game, like you mentioned before. There's none of that projection and blame game. Two healthy individuals will have a healthy relationship. Yeah. And even if it doesn't go the distance, even the uncoupling will be healthy. Yeah. They'll probably remain friends. Everything will be amicable because those two people are not in this resentful, destructive space. They're healthy. And there's very specific ways you can get healthy. And like we said, self-awareness is one of them. Yeah. And I'm just going to drop this in now, just if anyone's curious, look up the Enneagram. It's an absolutely brilliant way to know yourself. Absolutely brilliant. And another one is curiosity about the inner world of the other. Like we mentioned before, the into me you see, being genuinely curious, like what is making you tick? How many arguments and conflicts can be avoided when you deeply, deeply understand your partner and why they are the way they are, what needs they really need to be met, what is it they're going through, why do they have the problems that they have and the issues, and why do they have these certain needs? And it's not to say that I'll placate all those needs and devote all my energy to just fulfilling my partner's needs. That's just a part of the journey, right? Yeah. But it's to help them do that for themselves, to be a support for them to do that for themselves as well. It's what we call interdependence, when two healthy, independent people come together and have an interdependent relationship. It's like healthy dependence. Okay, and then the next one, number 5, is a real deep-seated and genuine goodwill for the well-being of both people. It's whether you're together or not. For me to deeply care about Emma's health, her development, her journey, her mental health, emotional health, like to really deeply, genuinely care about it, not looking at it through the lenses of how does it serve me, but to care deeply about her and myself. Yeah. And if that means this relationship doesn't work, to be aware of that and say, I'm not good for you. If that's the case, right? Just to be aware of that, so we can look at that together and then say, is this, we could look at it and say, is this right for both of us? Again, same team, regardless. Yeah. And I think that will just obviously bring out the compassion, affection, good nature, good decision making, good choices, positive choices. Yeah. And the last one I've put is investment. in the relationship, commitment and investment.
Yeah.
And by that, I'm totally not talking about sacrifice and compromise. I don't think that really sacrifice and compromise is as big of a thing as most people think, because that's generally coming from a place of lack of there isn't a resolution that serves both of us perfectly. And I'm pretty sure there always is. When two healthy individuals are on the same team and they're working together, there is a very healthy result. And I find if there's a lot of compromise and sacrifice, it builds up resentment in the background, this low level unspoken resentment that builds up and builds up and builds up. And there is a very specific place in human development where this takes place, which we won't go into now, but it does happen, and people become susceptible to it. So when I talk about investment, I'm like, if you want to do well in business, get a business coach, learn about it, learn about business, educate yourself in the area of business. And I wonder how many people have found a really, really good, strong, effective resource with advanced teachings in the area of relationships to master that area of life. Like invest, and when I say investment, I mean your time, your energy, not necessarily money. There's loads of free stuff all over the internet. You don't need to be rich to do it. You know, it takes if you devoted half an hour a day to studying and learning about the one thing that's going to be a massive, massive impact in your entire life. If you just half an hour a day, I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to do the maths, but isn't that something like 175 hours a year or something similar?
Something like that.
That's a lot of education.
Even listening to this is a resource and a form of education for people, even if it kind of prompts people. Do you know what I mean? So I think a lot of people, when I see and hear a lot, and it really, really bothers me that people come and go, you're our last chance. You're our last chance. And I'm like, why? Why did you leave? And it's not about the pressure it places on me, but why did you do that? Is it not worth more than that? Would you do that to a car that was limping down the road? No, you wouldn't. The car makes one noise and we put it in the garage and go fix it because it's precious to us. Where's the investment in relationships? Why are we not investing in that? And oh my goodness, it as you can see, it really, really triggers me because I want people to be bothered by it. I want people to enjoy really healthy relationships. But again, we feels like we bumble along and just get on with it.
It's about awakening, isn't it?
Yeah, we're just not taught it either, are we? No. We're not taught anything about it. And I think all the romance novels and the movies and things, it makes it seem like it should just be, you don't need to work at it. When it's right, it's right. And it's just, it just flows and it's perfect. And I think, a lot of us have that romanticized version that think it doesn't take some real world things that need to be added to that, especially because in the beginning of a relationship, there's all these love chemicals, like our bodies and biology, they give us all that romance and all that side of things, but that does wear off after a while. Biologically, because it has to. We were saying about when we first met, we couldn't have maintained that. Like I was having a hard time functioning at work because my phone would ping, it'd be his ringtone, my heart would be going, and working as a nurse and I've got someone on a ventilator, like I can't be all I have to like get myself together. So it's like, in a way, thank goodness it settles down a little bit, because if we were all in that love struck phase forever, nothing's getting done, no work's getting done, no one's getting out of bed, like it's
get back in bed.
It's so true.
But that is a really this is what we kind of teach and share, is that love struck phase is a really good time to do this work, to learn about relationships, because the want is there, the willingness is there, and by the time those chemicals wear off, you'll be really well equipped to keep that relationship healthy and keep it thriving and keep it moving forward.
And my guess is that people don't want to do the work at that point because they're too busy enjoying it, and they get kind of stuck in this trap of it's all amazing, it's all amazing, it's all amazing. Then all of a sudden it goes south and they go, what happened? Where did it go wrong? But just, oh my goodness, please, if you want your relationship to last, then please invest in it. Please invest in yourself, but then invest. And even by investing in yourself, you're investing in your relationship.
And vice versa.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing, is it? That's what a relationship is. What am I in
Yeah.
relation to them? What
Yeah.
are they in relation to me? We don't know what we are without relationships. That's how we define who and what we are, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can't really have one relationship with one person as really, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What am I in relation to you?
I'd love. We've definitely run out of time. I hate saying that because I kind of just want to keep going. But I think it'd be really interesting, particularly because it's such a big subject to do another recording and go back into it. Maybe look at the love languages and look at stuff like that. But it's such a powerful part of life, relationships. And when I talk about relationships, I talk about relationships with everybody, whether it be brother and sister, son and father, intimate relationships. We have relationships all across our lives with lots of people in lots of different ways, and actually learning about ourselves then leads to good relationships, can lead to good relationships. So it's a massive subject, isn't it? When you look at the life we lead, it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, learning all the stuff that I have as well and all the healing I've done, it's completely transformed my relationships with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, my family and anyone that I encounter. It's changed massively and really enriched my life as a consequence. So it was 100% worth the investment. I mean, obviously I'm biased because this is what I do for a living, but it was 100% worth it. I mean, it's the most important thing, I think, to most humans is connection and belonging and to be understood and for there to be no conflict and to live harmoniously. It's who don't want that?
Yeah.
But we're biologically wired. We're biologically wired to not to necessarily be with somebody else in an intimate relationship. It's not that part, but we are definitely biologically wired to connect and to have those relationships. So
I know it's a bit cliche and you hear it a lot, don't you? But people say, you know, in a prison full of very dark energies and people who've committed terrible crimes, the worst form of punishment is to be on your own in solitary confinement. People would rather be surrounded by very dangerous people than be on their own. And that really does speak to how important relationships are to us.
Thank you so much for your time and that fascinating conversation. Is there any one thing that you'd both like to leave the listener with? If they were going to do one thing, change one thing, learn one thing, what would it be? One thing. I'm going to nail you down.
Can I blend two together in a very clever way? Take absolute full 100% responsibility in awakening to the area of relationships. So it's take 100% responsibility and reimagine what a relationship is and start to redefine it, but take full responsibility for that. Bring the two together.
I think mine would be maybe like, especially if there's conflict in your relationship, I think all that energy that is going there, you know, just know that you can't control that other person. You can't do anything to them, or you can try, but it's, you know, it's, I would turn all that energy inwards, gift it to yourself. You know, if you feel like you're going around and around and around and you're on this hamster wheel and you're just not getting anywhere and it's all your energy's out and it's depleted, it takes energy for change. And if it's all depleted and it's all gone out, just take that energy inwards, even if it's just a little bit, like we were saying, a half an hour a day, and give that investment to yourself, and slowly then, you know, you'll get stronger. And
you know, keeping it really simple, that half an hour could be journaling. And if you need a structured journal, then even that can be kind of self-reflection and kind of learning about who you are. One of my favorite quotes of all time, and I sometimes use this as a measure of a room if I'm delivering something in corporate, is: we are not responsible for the programming we received when we were children. However, we are 100% for the choices we make as an adult. And I put that out there in the beginning. They go, who agrees with this? And sometimes if you've only got half the room putting their hands up, you're like, okay, I've got a measure of the room. I know where I'm at. And then other people all go, oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The part that gets people is the 100% and choices. They argue with that a little bit. And I'm like, it is 100%. You are responsible for 100% of your choices. And they go, no, it's not. And I'm like, you are. But you're not ready to hear that just yet. So we'll leave it there. It's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. 100% responsibility.
Yeah, it's massive.
I remember the first time I read that, there's certain defining moments in life where your life goes off in a different direction. And
Yeah.
that was one of mine.
Yeah.
When I read that, take 100% responsibility.
I
Done.
think once we do that, for me, here's the really empowering part. Once we do that, we then become empowered. Because like you said, Emma, once we take that energy, it takes energy to blame. But if we turn that back and go, what can I do? How can I alter this? Because it's me that's being triggered. Then the energy comes back and then we grow.
Mm-hmm.
We grow from
It's like that person either leaves or changes their behavior because you're teaching them how to treat you differently.
Yeah.
And even if they carry on, you've dealt with the wound. So the finger that they were sticking the wound that they were sticking the finger in has gone. So it doesn't hurt anyway. So either way, you're okay.
Yeah. It's like win-win, isn't it? Win-win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you again for your time. That was amazing. I really hope people enjoy this recording. And can we agree to do another one in the future?
Absolutely. I would love to.
Perfect. Thank you. That's it. We are done with another recording of Invincible You. Thank you to Home Radio for the production and the promotion of these podcasts. If you're not tuned into Home Radio, please tune in. You can get them on Alexa. You can shout enable Home Radio Alexa, or they have a website, homeradio.co.uk. And there's 2 apps on Android and iOS. So please tune into them. All of the podcasts, both visual and audio, are available on my Guthrie Therapy YouTube channel, so you can get them there. If we're not covering subjects that you wanted to cover, then please message in and we'll do our damnedest to cover subjects that you want us to cover. Everything is about growth. Everything is about our development and our empowerment. So that's it. Be kind to yourself and be kind to everybody around you. Please, please, please do that. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lots of love, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.